Welcome to this SLA chat. I'm Rebecca Jones, Dysart & Jones. This is my business partner to my right or left, depending on where you are, Jane Dysart. And Dysart & Jones is delighted to sponsor the SLACanada chats. I want to start by introducing Patricia Chia, who is our current president chair, and she'll say a few words of welcome.
Thank you, Rebecca and Jane and Dysart & Jones. So I just wanted to say welcome on behalf of SLACanada. We've long wanted to expand our strong network, and I think having a diverse set of discussion topics and the opportunities to meet and have these conversations is very important to everyone in SLACanada, and I thank you for attending. And I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that we are residing and enjoying these conversations wherever we are in Canada and in the States on the territories of the Indigenous peoples. And just a reminder that September 30th in Canada is going to be Truth and Reconciliation Day. So I'll turn it back to Rebecca. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patricia. And thank you for the land acknowledgement. Now I'm just going to, something has happened here. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to spotlight Gary. I see you're back, and
I'm back.
Gary's back. I'm delighted to spotlight for everyone. There we go. And I'm going to add my spotlight for just a few minutes. So, hold on one second. This is very embarrassing, but I just hear somebody coming to the door. Terribly sorry. Okay, I have to take that out of the recording. So Gary is in Silver Springs, Maryland, and he is expecting a huge thunder and lightning storm. So if it's anything like we've had here for the last couple of nights, we may lose Gary. So for those of you that have just joined, Gary's entire presentation and all the links are on the Dysart Jones website. I'm putting it in the chat again. That you can follow along with there. But Gary Price, for those of you that know him, you know that he has been a web aficionado for decades. I can't believe that he's even that old, because I still think of him as such a baby librarian. And that's right. And but I do want to share some great news for Gary, because we felt for a long time that Gary was a best kept secret, if you like. He was not getting the recognition that he deserved. And there he is. So this is on the Dysart Jones website. But Gary is a new partner in InfoDJs. InfoDJs is actually a research company. He may talk a little bit more about that, but it really is what he's been talking about with us in SLACanada for the last 3 years, I think, Gary, you've been joining with us on these webinars and now these chats in talking about how librarians can be the intelligence officer for their organizations. And that's what InfoDJs is. They are intelligent officers on projects. He also is the curator for a day in review for the Association of Research Libraries. This now has 1,000 followers. I certainly follow it. It's fabulous. It does. And, and last but not least, he is now, just of like a couple of hours ago, a new member of the Climate Change Resources team. Check this out. And so if you look at what this organization is doing, and Gary, there he is, the editorial contributor. And of course, many of you know him through InfoDocket, but look at this. This is late breaking news.
Literally.
What were you going to say, Gary? Go ahead.
Well, of course, thank you, first of all. Second, Stephen, I know, is on the call here, but one of the best titles I've gotten over the last 25 years is America's Greatest Canada File.
That's it.
Thank you, Stephen. And of course, leave it, and with the ARL Day in Review, leave it to a Canadian, Mary Lee Kennedy, who invited me to do Day in Review shortly after the pandemic began. I had been doing some work for Mary Lee for a while, for ARL for a while. And as the pandemic began, she said, you're sending me you're curating all of this good stuff for me and for other members of the ARL team. Why don't we start making it into just a newsletter and a website? And then came the newsletter. And I haven't talked to you in a while, Rebecca, in terms of the subscriber numbers, but I'm proud to say, and I know ARL is happy with it, the subscriber numbers are close to 2,300 right now. So it's kind of gone off. And it's really great. And I invite all of you to take a look. It's both a website and a newsletter, and it's free. It's a combination of library news, not just about ARL members, but a lot of it is, but also things going on in higher ed as it relates to libraries or things that people in the library world should be aware of. So it comes out Monday through Thursday at around 4:00 Eastern time. And I hope you take a look. And
So
what
today
else?
you're going to give us some reminders and also do a little bit of focus on resources, both free and fee for
Yes.
prospect researchers. Take it away, Gary.
Well, first, and by the way, Rebecca or Jane or Stephen, if anybody has a question as I go,
Right.
I love to answer questions versus talking for an hour straight. So
Yes.
feel free to drop in a few questions or and my phone's ringing, so I'll turn that off. You can cut that. As we would say in the broadcasting world, we'll cut that out in post-production. So we'll cut that out of the video. So a couple of things. One, I think prospect research was something I was really involved with when I was a baby librarian, as Rebecca likes to say. I did a lot of speaking for APRA, and I was very active on Prospect L. And I was so thrilled to be doing this presentation because I haven't looked at a lot of Prospect L and a lot of that material for a long time. And it's great to be looking at it again. As Rebecca said, by the way, the presentation is here or on the Dysart Jones or SLACanada website if you want to follow along or if you have to leave early. But for me, researching for prospects, researching for people is researching what companies can we find these people at is really all about nuggets, especially when using the open web. I don't know of any tool out there on the open web that's going to give you everything you want in 1 or 2 clicks. I mean, it just doesn't exist. And I think most of you on this call are already aware of that. So for me, it's all about finding those nuggets and then iterating from those nuggets, going all over the place on the open web, in some cases using Google, but using Google as an advanced search tool. And so taking every little nugget and iterating from that multiple times to hopefully find what you want or find something close. The other thing that I will say, and I've said this on many of our other calls, and I'll say again today, save and archive. And this is not only important for those of you, because many of you know this already, but I know a lot of you out there also do training, whether it be prospect research or something else on the internet or something else involving libraries. Saving and archiving the open web is essential because what we see today on any given web page might be gone tomorrow. That's why you need to save it both locally, and if you're a good person, which all of you are, you will save it in most cases. You should be saving it for everybody. And there are multiple ways of doing that. But I will tell you, Rebecca, and I think I've told you this before, everything I share, whether it be on this list of resources, whether it be on ARL Day in Review, whether it be on InfoDocket, I archive most of it locally on my hard drive, but I also archive it all in the Wayback Machine as I find it. And remember, just because, when especially when you're talking to non-pros about this, people can understand, that web page is gone tomorrow. It's here on Thursday, but by Friday at 4 p.m., it's going to be gone. People can understand that it's here and then not here. But what's really important to remember and to tell other people is archiving is important because even though the page might not be gone tomorrow at 4 p.m., the page might be changed. So what you saw on the web today on any URL or in any PDF could very likely be different tomorrow. So not only is it important to back up your bibliographies, your webliographies, but also, for lack of a better word, cover your butt, because what the page says today might be different tomorrow. That's why the more robust, the more copies of a web page over time is put into the Wayback Machine, the better. So that's that. And of course, when we're talking specifically about prospect research, it involves people. And in this case, the people searching for people on the open web. And one thing that I think all of you are aware of is that searching for people on the open web in the United States, it's considerably different than searching for people, and I mean basic directory type of information, if nothing else. It's different in the US than it is in Canada. To be quite honest with you, as time goes on, as somebody who also speaks a lot about digital privacy, I continue to become envious of my Canadian friends, because it's both a blessing and a curse. The blessing is there's a lot to find out about any one person in the US, but if you're that one person, it could be a curse. And let me show you what I mean. I'm going to use myself as the typical American. And let me tell you what I found. This is one of thousands of sites that do it. And what I'm going to show you right now is the free version of the site. I can't figure out what more they're going to tell me for a fee, but let me give you an example. So this is one of the sites. This is a site called Fast People Search. I've already done the search. And in a matter of seconds, for free, again, this is the free version. Let me make this a little bit larger. Oh, and of course, before I go through this, it's also about the quality of the information. You know, I can tell you that when I went through this a little while ago, most of it is correct as it relates to me. Not all of it, but what database is perfect. But as you can see, this is my free background report. If I want the full background report, I'm going to have to pay for it. And again, this is one of many different services that do it. So there you have my home address. Rebecca, it's Silver Spring. We're very particular about that here, not Springs.
Sorry.
Thank you. So that's correct. You know where I live. Come visit. These are my phone numbers.
Are you sharing this?
Oh, that would be good, wouldn't it?
Oh, wait a minute. Did I give you a?
There we go.
Good. Great. Okay.
So there's the presentation, blah, blah, blah. It's about nuggets. So let's go now. This is the page. It's Fast People Search. It's one of many. I can tell you that that is my primary phone number. Now you can also use this to start experimenting about me. Well, I don't recognize yes, this one, which we'll get to in a moment. These are other old phone numbers of mine, and they are correct. This one is a phone number. Actually, this one is incorrect, but this is one of the this is my mom's phone number.
Oh, geez.
Let's go on. Gary David Price. Now you know my middle name. Gary Price. Okay, Gary D. That's fine. Now let's look at where I've lived. Now, I have lived in the state of Kansas, but not in El Dorado. This is my current address. It's correct about when I moved to this address. Actually, this is the address I lived at before, and that is correct. This is, going back to my mom, they have associated Gary D. Price of Silver Spring, Maryland, with the person who lives at 205 Rivershire Lane in Lincolnshire, Illinois. That is my mom, who now has, with my stepdad, has a different last name, but that is absolutely correct. This is when I was in library school, so many years ago. Remember, before I became a baby librarian, this is from 1993 to the beginning of 96. That is my apartment number and my home and my address. This is the house I was raised in Wilmette, Illinois, outside of Chicago. We call it Toronto South. But that is correct. This is wrong. This one blows me away. For 2 months in the summer of 1988, I lived in Brooklyn, New York. That is absolutely correct. They have it all. And then this is my address when I first moved to the DC area. So all but one of those addresses is 100% correct. And from that, you can start experimenting. You can sign, who knows what you can find by going back and looking at some of that information. This is probably some of the most interesting things as it
Is this your
relates to
family
me.
tree?
What's that?
Is this your family tree?
Well, let me tell you, this is my wife. That is correct. That is her correct birthday. My father, may he rest in peace. But that is correct. And that is his correct birth year. This is, oh, get this, they have associated in it. So this is my sister's mother-in-law or my brother-in-law's mother. That is absolutely correct. This is my niece, now a student at the University of Iowa. This is my other niece, now a medical student. This is my step-grandmother, who is no longer with us, but it's correct. She actually was born in Montreal, so that's as close as I can get. This is my mom, correct. This is my brother-in-law's late father. This is my father-in-law. This is my brother-in-law. This is my mother-in-law. This is my late brother, my brother-in-law's late brother. This is my sister, different last name. They got it. This is I could say it a bunch of different ways, but these are my sister's brothers. This is my stepfather. So you get the idea that all of this information is pretty much correct. And it's all for free on the open web. And I see Jane and I see Rebecca shaking their heads. There is no way you're going to find this for anybody else for like this in Canada. And I think now, I mean, we could do an entire session. Maybe we could do this in the future, Rebecca, since I'm still working with you guys. I will always be working with you guys. But I mean, just about information policy and how it differs and what this means. I think the United States is coming to realize that this has never been a great idea, and it's really getting to be troubling. These are my neighbors.
Oh my God.
Yeah, which is, and by the way, this is a lot of this information is available on the most basic lookup websites to try to find my phone number.
Oh my.
And by the way, this is my current phone number.
Wow.
It's just crazy. So that's the difference between searching for an American on the open web. And again, as Rebecca and Jane are blown away, although I'm sure you've seen this before, this is nothing new. And this is, I want to stress this is from a plain old free open web database. Who knows what you're going to find out about me if you actually subscribe to one of these services.
Wow. Wow.
So
Thank God they don't have your child.
No, they do not have my son in here, but I'm blown away. Actually, this is the first time that I've seen my nieces 21 and 24 listed. My nephew, who is 18, isn't here yet, but I will be checking on a regular basis to see when his address becomes available. So that's the difference. And that's something that I think is really important to know. You can find out, and then from taking those little nuggets, you can start, iterating and finding all sorts of other things about me. But that's not all, ladies and gentlemen, about a good old American. I'll again use myself as the example. Let's see if this will work. Let's see, let me do it. So this, now remember, that was a free open web database. This is the actual state of Maryland. And by the way, Rebecca and I were talking earlier this week. I know that a lot of you are searching for Americans online as well. So this is an example of that. This is the official state of Maryland database for assessments and taxations. So I'm just going to show you, now that you know where I live, I will actually show you what you can find through this database. And again, this is different depending on the location of the person that you're searching. I'm just using myself as the example, but this is different for every state, every jurisdiction. Let me go on again. So from here, you can find out everything there is to know about my house. You can find when the deeds were transferred, how much I paid for my house, who I bought my house from, the square footage of my house. All that information is available. I don't think, and let me tell you, and while this might be, I don't think it is, but while this might be shocking for some, especially in Canada, I think it would be equally shocking for many Americans.
Yeah.
Many Americans have no idea that this information is out there. And forget about who knows who owns Fast People Search. This is available from the actual state of Maryland. So if you were doing research on anybody, and if they had a piece of property in Maryland, all you have to do is put their address in this database, and you're going to get all this information about them for free.
Wow.
It is a wow. And by the way, that's really it's almost 3 baths now. We just had one of them redone. And then we do have a basement, but I won't tell that to the state of Maryland because it probably would increase my assessment. Any questions, Rebecca? I know Jane, anybody else have any questions about what I just showed and the vast amount of information you can find out about somebody in the United States? And I guess for those of you in Canada, which most of you, I think you're saying to yourself, you're pretty lucky that this type of thing doesn't exist. Now, of course, you can look at it from the other perspective. If you're trying to do some prospect research on somebody, there sure is a lot to find out about somebody on the open web for free.
Right.
Gary, it's Stephen.
Hi, Stephen.
I just put some stuff in the chat if people want to look at it, because I thought some context might help. That prospect research is the umbrella term for a whole bunch of stuff.
Absolutely.
So
Great point, Stephen.
We have lots of skills that we can apply full-time and part-time to contact tracing, sourcing candidates for recruitment, association member sourcing, private detective, political work and candidate research, the pre-op stuff, security checks, insider trading reviews, criminal records, credit checks, sales target, finding birth parents and other relatives, DNA tracing. There's all sorts of ways to apply this rather than what we instantly leap to is finding prospects for making a sales call. And
Thank you for making that.
To expand that a little bit, that it looks creepy, but there's a lot of stuff here.
And I like your, first of all, thank you. Second, good to hear from you. And third, absolutely. This really is people search that can be used. And I love the idea of what you said. And as you can see, and as I see in the chat here, that these skills, I'm always talking to about how librarian information professional skills could be used elsewhere. And that if we don't advocate for ourselves, unfortunately, and hopefully this will change, but a lot of other people don't think about librarians, information professionals having these skills, and we do. So you're absolutely correct. This really is tracking down people. It's to put it in Yiddish, it's becoming the ultimate yenta, and it is in my experience with doing some of this. Not only was in my early days with speaking to APRA and being active on Prospect L, but as you know, Stephen and Rebecca and Jane know, I've done a lot in my career with the journalism community.
Right.
So these are also the skill. Many of these skills are what a journalist would use, or back in the day when the newspaper library existed or the media library existed, those people would do. So
Right.
absolutely, and these skills are transferable. It's just not about prospect research. Absolutely.
And you look at that next door neighbor piece. That is so much a journalist skill.
Absolutely.
Getting the next door neighbor's phone number and saying the murder next door. What do you think?
Right.
Absolutely, and that's funny it's funny, but it's sad that I've also used that analogy or that example is, well, 5 minutes after, God forbid, something happened to somebody and they find out that this is the murderer. Well, how do they know everybody who's ever lived next door to them, whether they be 15 or 25 or 45? It's these types of databases. And before the web came around, before the internet as we know it came around, these tools were only available, these databases, at least in the US, were only available to selected people. Often a news library would have these types of tools, and they still do. They're much more robust than what we have here. But with the right skills, you can get to a lot more of this information for free and in a very timely manner.
Gary,
Yes.
Amra has, and Amra, thank you so much for being here. You're always such a pleasure here. Has asked if California privacy law is going to change anything.
In terms of, for example, the database I just showed you, I haven't seen the California privacy laws making any difference, at least to this point. You know, I was just talking with a colleague about we need to have more, at least here in the US, we need to have more legislation, whether, especially as it relates, for example, to privacy and social media. My whole point about that is, yeah, for sure, let's try to get the legislation passed. Of course, it's another thing for people to actually for the legislation, if it was passed, to be used. How many times have we seen, I'll name a company, Facebook, be taken in front, to this point, be taken in front of the Federal Trade Commission here in the States, be fined a lot of money for us, maybe not a lot of money for Facebook, and whether it be Facebook or Google, to say, we won't do it again.
Right.
And then they do it again.
Right.
My whole point, and as you know, Rebecca and Jane and Stephen, has been, we'll move off of this, but as it relates to privacy, do what you can to take matters into your own hand. And the first place taking matters into your own hand begins is with awareness and knowledge, period. You can't do anything about any of this unless you know that it's going on. And unfortunately, as it relates to privacy here in America, well, I've been talking about it for years and others have, I just don't think it is, although more and more people are becoming aware of it, it makes a difference to them until it's too late, until something about that they don't want gets out, and then they want to do something about it. And I think, as I said, let's work on, at least here in America, let's work on the legislation, but I still believe the most important thing is the awareness and the knowledge of what's going on. And then, for example, when it comes to your web browsing, that kind of thing, or the location based on where you're searching, there are things that you can do to take matters into your own hands. Never should anybody say that they're 100% anonymous online, because if anybody tells you that, they're lying. But there are things that you can do to put roadblocks up to increase your privacy online, not to guarantee it, not to make yourself anonymous, but there are things that you can do to increase your privacy online. Okay. Again, as Stephen said, these skills, and now as you see archive, these skills are applicable in many different areas, whether it be prospect research. But what I have come to find out when I've worked with prospect researchers, when I've worked with any type of researcher, is that, it was there yesterday, but I can't find it today. So the number one thing I can suggest to you is to take a look and become familiar with this interface. This is from the Wayback Machine. This is archiving for all, making the Internet Archive more robust for everyone. As you can see here, I've created a free Internet Archive account. With that, I get these extra choices here, and one of them is one of the most valuable tools. So just for the sake of conversation, this hasn't been working properly the last day or two, but what will happen is when I click Save Page and I click Save Outlinks, this is something that's relatively new. It will not only save www.cnn.com, but we'll then go through that page and save all of the outbound links from that page at the same time. So now you have a copy of the page itself and everything outbound from that page captured at the exact same moment in time. And by the way, you can save not only web pages, but you can also save PDFs in here. And if it's a true PDF and there are hyperlinks in there, it will save all of those hyperlinks as well. So this is, I think, an incredible tool. And as I've said in other sessions I've done for you guys, I think that tools like this, that web archiving should be part of every student's bibliography. That at least two URLs are provided, one to the live website and two to a copy of that site or that page or that PDF at a certain moment in time. So that keeps the bibliography accessible at all times. And what you saw on that page at that time will be accessible to everyone until the Wayback Machine, God forbid, ever goes away. Oh, and by the way, I'd be happy to show you guys offline. Just email me that you can now archive bulk amounts of URLs using a Google Sheet. You just submit all of the URLs. You put all of the URLs in a Google Sheet. You submit it to the Wayback Machine. You walk away, depending on how many URLs you have. In a few minutes, an hour, it will come back saying how many of those pages were archived, and it will also go to all of the outbound pages and archive all of those at the exact same moment. Another tool I want to suggest to you, this is also a power tool, is a lot of times you will come to a web page and it's no longer available. With the Internet Archives browser add-on, if you come to a 404 page, you will get a little pop-up on your screen saying, do you want, with this one click, go directly to the Wayback Machine to save all of those pages to view that page at any moment in time if an archive copy is available. So if you come up to a page that has 404, a pop-up will show up on your screen and say, click here, and we will take you directly to the Wayback Machine for this particular page. Any questions? Let's see.
I have a question. Does the
Sure.
Internet Archive, does it survive the same way Wikipedia does through donations?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Donations and grants, that type of thing. Yes. Brewster Kell, many of you know of or have heard speak, an internet librarian, for example, but he is the founder of it. And Internet Archive is involved in a lot of different things, but a man by the name of Mark Graham. If any of you would ever want to speak to Mark, he's a friend of mine. I'd be happy to introduce you. But it's an incredible. I think it's the most beyond. The one web tool that's never talked about like it should be is the Wayback Machine, because like it or not, I like it. If it didn't exist, we'd have even a bigger problem than we already have. Brewster is a true visionary, and we've seen in other types of media, for example, early days of television, radio, film, a lot of that stuff doesn't exist. And one of the things I do, as I said earlier, is I archive a lot just because I'm fascinated by it. But things that even older things that you would think would be in the Wayback Machine by now, something from 5 or 10 years ago, nope. And unless you for example, I took 1,000 US government manuals the other day, and I grabbed all of the URLs and I put them into a spreadsheet, and I sent that spreadsheet to the Wayback Machine. Over half of them had never been archived, had never been archived, even things 10 or 15 years old. There is another tool that I want to quickly show you if this works correctly. But this is something else that's new on the Wayback Machine. So you click at the very top of the results page, you'll see it says changes, and this allows you to compare page A from a specific point in time to page B at a specific point in time. It will show you what has changed. It will actually highlight for you. It usually takes a minute. So here is Dysart Jones from 11/21 on January 26th of this year. And let's compare it to this one. We click on compare. I don't want to waste too much time doing this. You are fully capable of doing this yourself, but you'll actually see yellow indicates deletion, blue indicates addition. So if you're doing research and you quickly want to compare what was on the page at one time versus another time, this tool allows you to do it and actually visualize it. So whether you're researching a person or a company, a lot of things, and this applies not only to people or prospect research, a lot of things, period, are not there anymore. And if you're doing a profile of somebody or something, if that page doesn't exist, this is your best shot of getting at it. So, but this is what it looks like. It's slow during this part of the day, I guess. And there we go. So you can just compare one word to the next. You see the blue, the yellow, that type of thing. But this is a relatively new feature in the past year or two that makes comparing two different pages very, very easy. Property values. I showed you in my case with the state of Maryland, you could get it there. This is realtor.com. In this case, they nicely also put you they also embed a front page, a Google Street View image of my house. And you can find out, if you go further down here, you know, the price of the house, the price of this house over time. I could not find anything close to this amount of information from any real estate sites in Canada. Rebecca or Jane or Stephen, does this type of information, this historical information, is this available publicly in Canada on an open website?
I don't know.
I didn't find it. You know, Zoocasa is a popular
Right.
website in Canada. So I just picked a random house in Toronto. But you do not see the historical pricing information that you do on a US site. So again, there's a major difference. Now, I'm sure if you paid somebody for it, you probably could get it,
Right.
maybe not.
Right.
So property values are another piece of information that's also very useful for profiling somebody if they own property. I want to go on to this one, and boy, I could talk for hours on this topic. When you're profiling anyone or anything or any industry or new companies, old companies, really get to know the trade publications for those industries. But just an example, you know, and there are thousands of them. And I would be more than happy. Just send me an email. We'll set up a quick call. And I have my own little personal list of trade publications. It's getting longer and longer. My partner at InfoDigis and I want to do something with it commercially, but I'd be more than happy to share specific titles with you as we go forward. But just as an idea, you know, I don't think, you know, if you're profiling Mike Amend, that the fact that he was now named Ford's new chief digital officer, that's not going to be found really in any quote unquote major mainstream news source. But as you can see here, the other day it was found in the trade publication PYMETS or payments.com. So again, you're going to find a lot of things in trade publications, and many of them are available on the open web, and many of them, not all, but many of them make a lot of their content available for free. You can find out things like this very quickly using trade publications. So again, whatever the industry that the people that you're profiling are involved in, track down the trade publications and start monitoring them, set up alerts, however you track things, and you will find a lot out that you do not see in mainstream media. So I think that's really, really important. And I find when I'm doing research, I find a lot of things, trends, again, people news, I see it either, I never see it in the mainstream press, or I see it much, much, much earlier in trade publications. So again, I mean, my favorite trade publication by name is called Spudman, and that follows the potato industry. But there's a trade publication, there's probably 5 trade publications for every industry you could think of, and this is just one of them. For example, I read this quite often. It's a great read before bedtime. It's Food in Canada, which covers the food and beverage processing business in Canada. And again, by just looking at the stories, by setting up alerts, by just browsing once a week, once every few weeks, you will find things here that you don't see elsewhere. And of course, let me just copy this for use in a few minutes. You could also always be limiting your Google searches just to these domains. So again, trade publications are vital. And there's one or 5 for every topic you could think of, for every industry you could think of. And if you can't find them on your own, I'd be more than happy to share my knowledge of them and track down a few for you with we'll set up a quick Zoom call or something. One tool, I'm not going to go into this because I go into it all the time. But if you really are tracking someone on a specific site, or you're tracking a company, and you want to know what was different on the page today than yesterday, you want to know it before other people, or you want to know it because it's never going to be press released, it's never going to be covered. Website Watcher is an essential piece of software. Windows only, but there are ways, easy ways to make it work on a Mac. And this is a tool I've been talking about now for 20 years. And again, you will find out things here earlier than everybody else. The second the page change, the second the new content, for example, is put up on the web page, Website Watcher can alert you to it, and it will even show you if one or two words have changed. So an example I could share with you, for example, you're tracking the people at CN. Well, on the profile of their executives today, one of the executives might be different tomorrow, and you might not see the press release if they press release it at all. With Website Watcher, you could put this specific URL into it, and anytime it detects a change in any of these titles, or they remove mics and they give somebody else a position, you will know about it using Website Watcher. It's your own, think of it this way, it is your own personalized web crawler that will show you, not only tell you what on the page has changed, but actually show you what on the page. Let's see if I can let me actually fire it up here. So this is one of the tools that I use when I'm doing ARL Day in Review. And one of the things I have set up in here are all of the press release pages, for example, from all of the ARL member institutions. And I can quickly go to the page, and if something on the page has changed, it will highlight it, often in yellow for me. And it will actually then show, and it will actually only light up if something on the page has changed. So let's see. Get the idea. So when I ran this at 1:43 this afternoon, this post was not on the page. So you can actually see it detected the page change. It notified me of the page change. And when I clicked on it, it actually showed me, it highlighted what on the page was different than the last time I looked. For doing any type of research, but specifically company research, people research, a tool like this, in my opinion, is invaluable to you. And this costs about $80 US, and I think is well worth the price. If you ever want me to teach you how to use it, you want to get a quick tutorial, anybody on the call, I'd be more than happy to show them how this works specifically for them and get it up and running. It's very, very valuable. And you will know things. People have always said to me, and I'm very fortunate, well, how do you know this before I do? Or how did you see this? Well, it's because I have a tool like Website Watcher running all the time. I'm checking it, and it actually, within a very small amount of time, is able to show me changes on any of those pages. Advanced, again, this might be common knowledge for some of you, but I can guarantee you for some of the people that you guys work with, it's not, even this many years into the Google life. I can think of all sorts of other words to use, but I won't. So the most important in my mind, and there are other sites that call this X-ray. There's a very well-known searcher who is she specializes in teaching people how to search LinkedIn. She calls what I call site colon searching X-ray, because it takes Google to a completely different level. You are going to get much more precise results in a much shorter amount of time, and you're going to eliminate a lot of the junk. And you all know what I mean by junk. Another one is the extension file type colon, and you can combine them. So you could say, let me give you an example here. Well, here's the example. And I mentioned this to Rebecca the other day. As I was preparing for this, I was searching for some Canadian companies, and I found that Megan Roach was named, I believe, earlier this year as the new CEO of Roots. So, and I noticed in her little bio on the Roots site that she was a graduate of Queen's University. So then I quickly went to Google, typed site:/queensu.ca, their domain, and her name, of course, in quotation marks. And I was able to find out, for example, that she's going to be giving a webinar as part of a panel discussion in the upcoming weeks. So instead of going to Google and typing in Megan Roach and coming up with all sorts of things that have nothing to do about not only the particular Megan Roach we're talking about, but all the other people with the same name, I have limited it using a piece of knowledge I was able to get elsewhere, and I come up with much more precise results that I can actually scroll through and find something potentially useful that way. Is this clear, Jane and Rebecca, or anybody else? That this takes Google to a completely different level, and I wish more people were using Google this way. I will also say that for those of us who have been doing this for a while, Google used to have a lot more advanced syntax, like site:/, like file type:/, but because they're Google, and but most importantly, because nobody uses it. So if they get rid of it, nobody's going to notice the difference. Over the years, we've seen them get rid of a lot of their advanced features, because most people still to this day go to a search engine, type in 1 or 2 or 5 words, don't use quotation marks around phrases,
Right.
for sure don't use queensu.ca site:/, and it's gone. You know,
Gary,
yes.
I have a question
Sure.
from our studio audience. How
Mhm.
would you compare WebWatcher to a LinkedIn Sales Navigator subscription?
I can't say I'm 100% familiar with that product, but I'm going to guess that LinkedIn cannot get you to any level of any website and constantly check up to every 30 seconds for page changes. And there are other tools. That's a good point, Rebecca. Thank you, whoever asked that. There are many other tools that do what Website Watcher does.
Is one of those tools Watch That Page?
Yes.
Thank you, Amra.
The problem with that is, one, you cannot do nearly the you cannot specify things and do all sorts of additional search to all sorts of value added things with Watch That Page. As I said, you can't have it sent. You can't have it activated every 5 minutes. You can't have the results sent to you directly every 5 minutes via email and have the page change as the attachment. With Website Watcher, you can. The other big difference between Website Watcher and other tools, especially the fee-based ones, is that once you buy Website Watcher, you can organize it into folders, and you can check thousands and thousands and thousands, if you want, pages as frequently as you want. If you were going to do that with one of these other web-based services, it's going to start to cost you a lot of money, because most of the ones that I've seen, almost all of them, you buy URLs to check. In other words, you buy, I want to check 50 pages. Well, that's going to cost you this amount. Or I want to check 500 pages. Well, that's going to cost you this amount. And I want to check 500 pages once a week or once every 20 minutes. That's also going to be factored in some cases. With Website Watcher, you bought it, you own it, and you can check things as often as you like with no limit on how many pages you can check. And but I think, but the other point that I want to make is Website Watcher has worked for me for nearly 20 years. But that doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody, and that's why, and I'm glad Watch That Page was mentioned, that there are any number of tools out there, and the good information professional knows about a variety of them and using the right one at the right time. If I was going to spend the entire presentation just on page alert tools, I would have gotten to them, but this is just a nearly over 55-minute intro, and I can't name all of them. One other quick note that I've noticed recently with Google. So get this. And again, this might be common knowledge to most of you, but not probably for those you are training and working with. If this works. Yeah. Okay. And by the way, why you're seeing 24 results with one scroll is because I have the default number of results that Google will show me instead of 10, which most people have. I went into the settings and changed it to 100. So I don't have to keep clicking after 10 results. Now, I will readily admit that Google's numbers in terms of page totals are off. And by the way, Google will not show you, for the last 2 or 3 years, will show you any more than 300 or 400 results for any given search. But I want to show you what I've noticed lately that's really become problematic, for me at least. So I've scrolled through 24, right? And then I come to, in order to show you the most relevance, we've omitted. And now it goes up to 18,000. So while they might not, who knows exactly how much they're admitting, by not clicking on that turn off the filter, you very likely could be missing something of value. The other thing I want to point out, again, to you guys, to point out to others, is this little button here called Tools, which I've showed this to so many non-information pros over the years, and most people said, quote, "I've never noticed that before." Clicking on Tools turns Google into, to use old school terminology, a information ticker. And right now, I'm seeing things that Google might have crawled at any time. And again, I try a variety of these because, again, that stupid filter clicks in after so many. But one thing I do quite a bit, because one of my jobs on one of my many clients is to find the newest stuff, is I'll limit it to a specific date. Now, early in the web era, the date searching was very poor, but date searching now has become much better. So now if I want to see the latest PDFs that have the phrase user manual in them from the US military, and I want to see things that have been crawled in the past month, there I go. That's as easy as it is. So if you're monitoring for new things, for changes, limiting by date might be something that you might want to consider. I also sometimes use Google to search with LinkedIn. So again, using that, I could type, and again, it's learning the terminology that people use on LinkedIn, but I was able to find, people who are Ryerson graduates, I think there are more, but that mention CTV in the results. You get the idea that you can, as I said, there is a person out there who is an expert in LinkedIn searching, and she always is talking about using Google to search LinkedIn, not using LinkedIn's own search tool. So with that site : you can limit it to any particular site. And by the way, it just doesn't have to be a particular site. It can be a top level domain like .com or .mil, as I showed you a moment ago. And it could be, I'm not going to click on this because I don't know it exists, but I could go cn.ca/blah, blah, blah, /blah, blah, blah, and it will just search that domain. So it gets rid of so much junk, is such a time saver, and gets you and all users much more precise results. And again, that's applicable if you're searching for people or you're searching for a company, whatever. In terms of trying to find new technology, who might be a new millionaire one day? One place that you might want to be checking are tech transfer offices from various universities. So for example, from MIT has this wonderful site. It lists everything, a lot of the things that are coming out of the university. So let me just pick one: fibers and textiles. And you can search, and they give you all sorts of information, including the names of the inventors. You find out if there's a patent on it from both from WIPO and in this case from the US Patent Office. So databases like this from many universities have tech transfer offices, and these are great places to find new technology, people who might have gotten funding, companies that might be starting, people that you might want to start learning about, because maybe one day you will be calling on them for a donation, for involvement in an organization, so on and so forth. Since we're running short on time, obviously company filings, the Edgar filings, there's a wonderful database for SEC filings here in the States called Open Insider. And this just limits the database. There are all sorts of different forms in the Edgar database. This just limits the database for Form 4, which gives information about insider trading, where then you can find out, well, you know, this executive just sold a zillion amount of shares for tens of billions of dollars. This is a database that you can find out just that particular information, or you can use it to screen for people who might have the qualifications or the insider trading, have just sold the amount of shares that you might be interested in. All sorts of ways you can work that as well. Of course, CEDAR and SETI. There was one site, it wasn't working yesterday. It's still not working today, but this is one of my all-time oldies but goodies called SEC Info. I believe that they were hit with a ransomware attack and they're offline for now, but this has an incredibly robust database and includes in one database both US and Canadian material. Hopefully they'll be back online soon. A couple of news search tools out there. Obviously, most people rely almost entirely on Google News, but even if the same item is in Google News, who knows about Google's relevancy ranking algorithm for that story, the keywords. So here are two other wonderful news search tools out there. One is called News Lookup. It's very basic, but works well. The other one is a lot more robust. It's free if you register for 30 days worth of news. It comes out of Slovenia and it's called Event Registry. By the way, whether it be with Edgar filings, which of course have RSS feeds, you might not want to have your RSS feeds coming into an RSS aggregator, if you know what that is, and I'm sure most of the people on this call do, but others don't. Let's say you want to have your RSS feeds, you want to share a particular feed with somebody who you don't want to spend the time teaching about RSS. You could use a tool like Zapier or IFTTT, set it up for the person and have those Edgar RSS feeds go directly to their email. IFTTT is a resource that's been around for years, but it allows you, the original subtitle was Hacking for Dummies, Coding for Dummies. It allows you to combine different resources. Mashup for Dummies is what they were calling themselves. It allows you to take different resources and mash them up together without having to do any coding. IFTTT is great. For those of you who want even more, take a look at Zapier or Zapier, depending on how you pronounce it. But this has even more independent services that you can mash together by just pointing and clicking. RSS app is a very, very useful tool for people who are doing news and alert tracking, that type of thing. Not every site, not every web page has an RSS feed. However, of all the tools out there, and I've tried a lot, RSS.app for a small price every month will, in many cases, not 100%, but in many cases, will allow you to create an RSS feed that you can take anywhere you like by just pointing and clicking. It is not guaranteed, but of all the tools out there that will create RSS feeds for sites that don't have them naturally, RSS app is by far, in my opinion, the best tool for that. One other thing, and I know we have to go soon, or I'll stay forever if you want.
I was gonna say.
One other tool, we can come back to this another time, but one other thing that we really haven't talked about today, and we really should be focusing on it with an entire presentation, is, I mentioned a moment ago, News Lookup and Event Registry, and of course, Google News. That's great for text-based news, but so much of what people are saying today might never be in a newspaper. There might never be a text version of it out there. In other words, I'm talking about podcasts. I'm talking about, and this is both a blessing and a curse. I don't love that one company has such dominations over open web video. But on the other hand, you can pretty much find everything in one place with some exceptions, but not many. And that is YouTube. So what I suggest you might want to think about is creating alerts for example, companies or if a person has their own website, to let you know when they've put up a new video. Now, how can you do that? Well, I could, again, call me and I'd be happy to step you through the process, because the process I would share with you today, Google is constantly changing where they put the links, but I will show you another tool that I use that makes it really great. One, and this is perhaps the biggest change in my life professionally over the past year, and that is, for years, I would come on presentations, or I'd go to Internet Librarian or Computers and Libraries, and I would talk about a tool called, I would talk about my favorite news lookup, my favorite RSS aggregator. Well, I'm not even going to mention it, because I have completely went 180 and moved back to Feedly.
Oh,
One of the things I love about Feedly is that they have this AI. It's really not the greatest AI, but it helps to help me, to notify me of what I really need to be looking at, because I go through thousands of RSS. I go through thousands of headlines a day. And what they call Leo works very well compared to what I was using. But one of the things I want to show you is, so let's say I want to follow a YouTube channel. Let me just go to YouTube. One link I didn't put up. See, I can't type. So every YouTube channel, quote unquote, has a feed. So just for the sake of conversation, I'll go to the CBC News, right? You're with me so far? I'm going to go to CBC News. And again, I'd be happy to walk you through this.
My name is Mary.
I'm going to go to videos, which is the actual place where you find the link that you need to use. I'm going to click videos. I'm now going to take that link, paste it into Feedly. And let me get it here. I lost it.
it's over there on the left side. There
There it is. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to take it to Feedly, and it's going to automatically find the right link. I'll paste it in right here. And now in my Feedly, I have every time a new CBC News video comes online, I'm going to be notified about it. So does that make sense? Now, you might not want to do this for CBC News because they're tossing out thousands of videos each week. But for a specific company that you're tracking, this might be something useful, because maybe the person you're tracking is the CEO of whatever company, and they're going to be interviewed once or twice or many times. They're going to host webinars on their site that they're going to put up on YouTube. This is a way to quickly know that they're available, and then for you to make a decision, this is something I want to look at or something I don't want to look at. So there are actual RSS feeds for CBC or for any YouTube channel. I'd be happy to show you how to get them. They're not easy to find. So again, you know where to find me.
Okay, Gary, I'm just going to, because it's 5:03, and for those of you that need to leave, this will be put up. I have to say, yes, Patricia, it's okay. But I was going to say, before anybody goes, if there's something in particular that you wish we had spent more time on, if you could put it in the chat, because what Gary and I have done before is we've done like quick, 8-minute videos to finish off on a particular site or a topic and put those up. And we are happy to do that because we like to talk to each other. So diving more deeply on tools such as Feedly. Okay, Gary, we could do that.
We could do an entire 1 hour on Feedly.
On Feedly. Okay, not an hour, Gary. We don't have an hour. Okay. And anything else that people would like to put up. Gary, take your screen down for a second. I just want to, it will take an hour. Yes, I know it will take an hour. Thank you, Kim. And there he is. And Gary, once again, like I'm just wowed. Hello, Karen. I sent you a direct message. Hi, Nita. Hey, Kimmy. And
Hi,
all
Kim.
those all those that joined us today, thank you so much. Please do send us. You can even say, if you don't have our email, you can put it on our website. If there's particular topics that you'd like Gary to dive into, you can see how much he has, and he's just a wealth of wonderful Canadian-based information. I
And-
wanted to get to the Ontario employees' salaries. Everybody catch that one? Okay, let's go. Is
Next
that
time,
beyond the
hugs,
sunshine list?
Gary, hugs, hugs, hugs to you.
Okay, I got the news. I know it's the sun, but it's beyond the sunshine list, isn't it, Gary? Is it just the sunshine list?
Yeah, it's a searchable database of the Sunshine List, and the same thing for the same thing. I have one there for BC employees. A lot of the news organizations, American Business Journals does these for individual states here in the United States. So this one just came out 2 days ago, and this is the new state of Maryland payroll database.
Thank you. So thank you, everyone. We will be returning. Please check out the Dysart Jones website for our next SLA chat and our next Nexter chat. And thank you, Gary.
Can I mention one more? I'm not going to show it.
You got one.
I'm not going to show one. I'm not going to talk about it. But whether, for those of you, whether it be patent searching or scholarly publication searching, or how about a database that combines both of them and does more advanced things? This is not for every searcher, but this is for the types of people that are on the call. Please take a look at, I have no involvement, but please take a look at lens.org. It is absolutely amazing.
Excellent. Lens.org. Got it. Okay. Bye, everybody. Be safe. Be well.